industry is kind of fueled by drugs and alcohol. Ultimately, the catalyst that brought me back to Bangkok was my addiction. Essentially, I was 40. I just moved back into my mom's house. You know, I didn't have a job. One of the reasons why I chose pizza was like, how hard can it really be? It was hard.
So in this video, we meet my friend Chef Bing. Bing is Thai American from New York, and he left New York to start his restaurant here in Bangkok, specializing in New York style pizza. And I must say, it's pretty damn good pizza. But in this video, we learn about Bing's upbringing in the restaurant business in New York, what led him to finally saying goodbye to New York and moving back to Thailand permanently. Bing's gonna show us his whole process of making top quality New York style pizza. Anyways, let's go meet Bing.
All right, I want to start off this video by saying that after living here in Bangkok for close to 5 years, I do miss food back home. And I grew up on American style pizza, New York style pizza. Good pizza here in Bangkok is hard to come by. Most of the pizza places over here in Bangkok, they're all Italian style pizza, and they're all European style. And you know, that works for some people if that's how they grew up eating, but not for me. I like American stuff.
Yeah, American
shit.
America. It's a preference thing.
It's largely a preference. But I'm going to introduce you guys Chef Bing and his story as a Thai American. That you were born in Bangkok.
Yeah.
And then you moved from Bangkok to New York when you were very young.
Yeah, I was 6 years old.
6 years old. And then eventually, fast forward to today, you moved back to Bangkok and started 2 locations.
Yeah.
Specializing in curating and perfecting New York style pizza.
Yeah, striving for perfection.
Not to be a giant kiss ass, but I love your pizza. Be straight up, be straight up. You know, I'm gonna introduce Chef Bing and have him tell his story about as a Thai American who's moved back to Bangkok and started up his restaurant business here in Bangkok.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind giving us an intro, Chef Bing, about where you were born and your upbringing, bringing you back to New York.
Okay. Sawasdee krap, everybody. I was born here in Bangkok in 1979. Moved to New York. My mom moved us over, me and my brother, over to New York when we were young, 6 years old. And you know, I lived and you know, went to school and worked about 30 years of my life in New York. And you know, I think I've been back here about 8 years now. I came back I think I came back in 2017. And you know, I knew I was gonna do some type of business for myself. I wasn't really sure what I was gonna do. And I kind of, you know, chatted with some friends back in New York, and I also kind of, you know, I was missing pizza, so I tried out some of the New York style pizzas here in Bangkok, and I'm not gonna say that it wasn't good, it was just something, you know, I felt like it was lacking, you know, the options. There was only a couple of operators that were trying to do New York style pizza, so I kind of saw an angle and a story that I could kind of push the brand, you know, so I ended up deciding to do New York pizza.
I would take it that during your entire stay in New York, your background is restaurant/food and beverage.
Well, no, I actually started in the industry, in the F&B industry, relatively late. I started when I was around 26, 27. Most cooks and people that wanted to cook professionally, they would, for the most part, they would start really young, relatively young. 17, 18, they're already in the kitchen, you know, stuff like that. I was actually in real estate prior to me stepping into the food industry. You know, I worked in subprime mortgages for about 4 years, and when the market crashed, I made that shift into culinary.
What was the inspiration of making you leave real estate and pursue food?
Well, the real estate thing was essentially, you know, the market crashed, and I didn't see myself in a corporate setting. You know, I was working for the bank. And I always enjoyed cooking and entertaining for my friends back home. You know, like my house was essentially like, we called it headquarters. So it was like always people around, always people hanging out. You know, we were always like barbecuing and stuff like that. And my dad actually was the one that gave me the ultimate push to go into cooking, because my dad was a cook. You know, my dad, he was actually, weird enough, he was working in an Italian restaurant. You know, so my dad, he made pizzas in Khao San.
Wow.
Yeah, in like the early 90s, right before that big coup that we had here.
Yeah.
My dad had a shop in Khao San selling New York style pizza, you know. So interesting enough, you know, like fast forward to now, you know, I came back and our first location was like 500 meters from Khao San.
From where your dad started his
From
shop?
where my dad started his shop. So it was kind of like this, you know, full circle, this, you know, it was just an amazing experience. You know?
So your father gave you the huge push, the inspiration to, like, you know what, pursue food.
Yeah, to pursue food. You know, I didn't cook any pizza when I was back in New York. I was in more a restaurant setting. You know, I did my first cooking job was it was a Thai restaurant. You know, we did modern Thai, like elevated Thai. At King Shop for about 2 years, and then I shifted over to cooking Mexican cuisine under Alex Dupac for about 2 years, and then I returned to working with Harold, he's like my first chef. You know, and I went to work with him in Greenwich Village. He was opening his third restaurant at the time. It was called The Marrow. It was a homage to his roots, I guess. It was like we were doing half Italian, half German cuisine. You know, so I did that for another 2 years, and then I decided to kind of pursue entrepreneurship, where Chef Bing was actually started as like a meal prep catering business in New York City, and you know, so essentially I spent 6 years in the industry, and then I pulled myself out of it, and I did catering for about 3 years, and then ultimately I got an offer by a chef friend of mine, Diego. He was doing 2 restaurants at the same time, and it was like a California-inspired concept for the restaurant. And at the time, I was very focused on doing healthy foods like veganism, you know, vegetarian stuff, and he offered me my first chef job.
And there's a big market for the vegan food in New York.
Yeah, and like just health-conscious food in general, you know, down to like the sourcing of ingredients and stuff like that. And so essentially, like when I got here, it was between New York pizza and between like vegan food, plant-based food. But I saw that it was probably going to take a little bit longer to get some traction to do plant-based here, you know. And you know, pizza is the #1 food in the industry, you know, in the food industry. So
yeah, it's widely recognized. So good thing
it's
he
widely
sells pizza.
recognized.
Good thing he
So
sells pizza.
I was like, okay, you know what, let's make it easier on ourselves and let's do pizza. And which was, you know, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Now, through your entire experiences of, you know, working at a German Italian restaurant, doing Mexican food, spending over 3 years for your catering business.
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years. 3 years in your catering business. At that point, what was the pivotal moment of you realizing that, you know what, you know, I've had my time over here in New York. Let's see what Thailand has to offer. What was the catalyst that eventually made you to
Well,
Thailand?
so honestly, it was an addiction. I had trouble with addiction back in New York, because the food industry is kind of ran, you know, fueled by drugs and alcohol. You know, especially back then. You know, the times have changed. You know, but ultimately, the catalyst that brought me back to New York, back to Bangkok, was my addiction. I tried to get help. You know, I did rehab. I did, you know, I did AA, NA, CA. You know, got a sponsor. I did my steps, and all that never really stuck. You know, I was like a functioning addict, so I excelled at what I did, but you know, my family life and my personal, like my health and stuff took a toll, you know. So it was basically my third relapse, you know, not even relapse, it's my third rock bottom, You know, it's like I relapsed a lot of times, and it was like the third one was the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, so it's like everything went by really fast. You know, like it was essentially I was working as a head chef, and this was in 2016. I was working as a head chef, and then by the time New Year came around, I had just recently, you know, relapsed and hit rock bottom, and you know, I think in a matter of a 2-3 month span, everything spiraled. Next thing I knew, I was on a plane coming back to Thailand.
But after relapsing, like you and your family realized that maybe it's probably better for you to get away from that environment, and just to come to Thailand to.
Yeah, because like the problem was it wasn't the lack of trying. It was so accessible. You know, drugs were really accessible in New York City. It's like everywhere you turn, you know. So it essentially was like you take one little, you know, your mind strays away for 1 second, and you could automatically just be back into that spiral, you know. So yeah, it was like I was married at the time, and we divorced, and you know, my ex-wife and my mom was essentially like, you need to really get out of New York, you know, basically changing people, places, and things. You know, that's what we learned, you know, during counseling, where you know, remove yourself from the environment, you know, because like, you know, it was a 10-year addiction, so it was a long time, you know, it was a decade. You know.
What is it about Thailand that it helps you recover?
I think, well, one, my drug of choice was not accessible here, you know. But two, I think the culture is not, it's very different than New York. You know, Bangkok especially has a lot of things that you can kind of relate and reminds me of New York, but I think the Buddhist culture is one of the biggest differences. You know, it took me almost about 2 years to actually adapt and get used to the way the culture is here. You know, I think it's more family oriented in a way, where, you know, it's like, you know, my mom retired before I moved back here, you know, so she was already 2 years retired, and I already had the thought of, okay, when she gets older, it's like, what am I gonna do? You know, who's gonna take care of the parents and stuff like that? So it was kind of an easy choice, because ultimately I didn't have a choice. It was like, hey, get your stuff. We're getting you a plane ticket, and you're going to Thailand, you know. So I got here, and you know, culture shocked, definitely, you know, because things are a little different here.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah, I could only imagine like New York being very fast-paced, very type A, eat or be eaten alive.
Yeah.
Whereas for here in Thailand, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, that Sabai, like Mike and Lai type of vibe, you know. I think New York was more open, more direct, you know, and here people, from what I've encountered in my experiences, it's like, you don't really know. It's called the land of smiles, right? So everybody's smiling, you know, but obviously you can't trust everybody, and not everybody has your best interest in mind, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think a lot of foreigners, and myself included, you know, I kind of got here and I was like, oh, everybody's so friendly, everybody's so nice. And you kind of let your guard down a little bit, you know? So I definitely got burned, you know, by a couple incidents here that, you know, I took as a learning lesson. You know, it's like, as much as like, I much rather have that openness and directness and honesty from New Yorkers than kind of that little like cover, that little front. You know?
That's one of the biggest differences I noticed about moving from the States and moving to Asia, is that they will never be 100% open. You kind of have to read and see between the lines.
Yeah, and it's not really their fault. You know, I think it's just I think that's how I think the culture is a little bit. They kind of try to avoid confrontation, avoid talking about their feelings and stuff like that. You know, like, it's different. You know, but I love it in in Thailand. You know, it's like I think that go, that eat or be eaten type of lifestyle in New York is definitely not suitable for everybody. You know, you definitely grow and become a different type of person in New York, where it's like, yeah, you get put through a lot that other people have not experienced, so you become tougher and you become more honest, more like, I don't really care, you know, more like, hey, like this is me, like accept me for who I am. You know?
Since moving back to Thailand, you've took some years, recovered.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, were you also working during that time of recovery?
So when I got here, it was basically I was not living a sober lifestyle. You know, I never claimed to be like a sober. You know, I'm not. You know, I got here and I still dabbled on alcohol and a little bit of cannabis and stuff like that. But yeah, I was fortunate. My mom, she kind of gave me allowance essentially to kind of go and vacation for the first like 3-4 months when I got here. And then after the vacation was over, I didn't travel. I traveled within Thailand. You know, I went down south, I went to the north, I went to the east, and kind of just really try to reconnect with my roots. And I ended up deciding to find a cooking job here because I never worked with Thai people. So, I think it was one of the first things. Actually, no, it was a friend of mine. A friend of mine, he recently just got a job down in Krabi for a restaurant. And that restaurant happened to be looking for a head chef, so I kind of sent my resume in, and got the call within like a day or two, and they essentially was like, hey, can you come down for one person face-to-face interview? And I was like, okay. I went down and had a really good interview, and I ended up accepting a head chef job. I think I think they changed the name, but it was for Jenna's Bistro. We were doing like a steakhouse, essentially.
Steakhouse was a little bit of Thai, or just mostly?
A little bit of Thai.
Mostly Western.
Yeah, but it was like half. It was mostly Western. There was Thai options, but it was more Western focused.
How was it like working in that kitchen with the Thai staff compared to working back in New York?
It was challenging. It was because I think. I was at the time the staff was almost essentially all Thai. There was no Burmese in the kitchen. It was basically all Thais, and I had to realize that they're more sensitive. They're more like tough love does not work. In these types of kitchens.
Because I can only imagine that employing directness and tough love with Thai people, they're just going to shut down.
I tried, to my mistake, I tried tough love, and I tried to teach him the way I was taught, back in New York. New York was, the kitchens in New York are a whole different,
It's an animal.
Yeah, it's a whole different animal. So, it was good in a sense where I kind of had to learn how to. It gave me a chance to learn how to become a better chef, right? To become a better teacher. I think that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest challenges of being a chef or a head chef is, I think, it falls down on training and training your staff and getting your staff to understand exactly what your intentions are, in the kitchen. And I was very open. I tried to share my experience with them about what I went through and stuff like that. And ultimately, it was a good year. That I took a 1-year contract, and I worked down there for a year. And after the year was over, I moved back to Thailand. Moved back to Bangkok.
What was one thing when it comes to constructive criticism when it comes to training Thai staff? Because obviously the direct approach doesn't work. So would you say that you need to offer them a little bit more grace?
I think it's more, they're not very, they're afraid to speak, essentially. So every time I train or every time I try to tell somebody to do something, I try to be clear where I'm like, I ask them, hey, do you understand? Like, you coach I and all the time it's always yes. It's always yes, 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 when they actually really didn't digest or really understand what I was teaching them, you know, and in that sense it's very hard to train, you know, because like
They'll say yes, but deep down inside it's a no.
yeah, and it's just like I think I don't know if they're embarrassed or I don't know what it is why they don't just say, hey, like I don't understand. It's okay to not understand, you know. It's like there's language barriers, there's things that we have to learn, but if you're just gonna keep saying yes to me, it's like I'm gonna think that you understand me, you know. So it's like they have to kind of be more confident in like asking questions, you know. Like I think that's the biggest thing. It's like especially young cooks and people new in the industry. It's like you're not gonna learn unless you ask questions.
Yeah.
And so that's my constructive criticism. It's like be more open, be more trusting. You know, they don't trust very easily. You know, they're very like cautious when they're, especially when you're around the head chef and stuff like. So yeah, just be more open to holding a conversation, you know, and asking questions.
After your 1 year was finished, you ended up moving back to Bangkok.
Yeah, I moved back to Bangkok.
And then what was next after?
I was just turned 40, you know, and actually it was like right before I turned 40, so I was like 39, and essentially I was 40. I just moved back into my mom's house. You know, I broke, didn't have a job, and was living off of my mom's allowance. My mom gave me a 10,000 baht allowance a month, you know, to live on. So I was like, okay, I can't do anything. Let me just buy a PlayStation and let's figure out this pizza thing. Because again, I never tried making pizza. I barely baked, you know. I was more like a line cook, you know, like sautés and on the grill and stuff like that. I wasn't a baker. So it was a lot harder than I thought it would be, you know. One of the reasons why I chose pizza was like, how hard can it really be? It was hard. So it was basically everyday pizza. You know, I would study recipes and, you know, got as much information as I could off the internet. You know, definitely that was like the tool that I used. You know,
That's crazy because, like, I had the impression that you learned how to make pizza back in New York.
yeah, most people did.
But
yeah.
then, in reality, you learned pizza here in Bangkok.
Here in Bangkok, in Non-stop, you know, that was where my mom's house was. So I was basically, you know, waking up and making dough and figuring out fermentation and figuring out, you know, I think the first thing was the dough. You know, dough to me is the most important thing in pizza. You know, a lot of people can have their opinions and stuff, but for me, I think it comes down to the dough.
Yeah. So from there, you're just experimenting with dough and
Mhm.
different kinds of recipes.
Yep.
And then from there, I mean, what was the moment that you were
Yeah.
talking about launching?
It was so I had a bunch of trouble trying to get the recipe to work, and then once I finally got it to work, we decided to. Well, my mom wanted me to open it at the place at her house because it was a big house. We had space, but I told my mom it wasn't gonna work. But you know, she kind of insisted, you know, that we opened over there, and I was like, okay, you know what, like, my mom was the investor. You know, I didn't have any money, so I was there under my you know, begrudgingly, you know, we opened in Non-stop. It lasted not even a month, and I decided to shut down just because we weren't getting any sales. We were not on the main road. We were deep in the Muban, you know, and the working class, you know, our pizza wasn't like something that was inexpensive. It was relatively high, so you know, it was good. It gave us a chance to do friends and family, you know. So a lot of friends and my family came to visit and gave me a kind of test run of how am I going to approach it. And then ultimately we ended up moving to my dad's Buddhist bookshop in Thonglor now, which is right across from Khaosan.
Yeah.
And that's where Mark Wiens found us and stuff.
So from your mom's house,
Yeah.
moved over to your father's bookshop.
Yeah. I found this Buddhist bookshop.
Buddhist bookshop,
Yeah.
and then that was the launching point of
Yeah, that was
location number
that
one.
was the location number one. Location number one was I think we opened about 2-3 months right before COVID.
Right before.
Yeah, right
Wow.
before COVID.
Must be a tricky time to.
Yeah, I think we opened right because we opened right at COVID because we were waiting. I ordered ovens from the United States, and we were waiting for the ovens to arrive, and then COVID hit, and then the ovens came like essentially right at that month or a month after, and me and my wife just kind of looked at each other and kind of like, we have to open. It's like, there's, COVID or not, everything's ready. Let's get our feet wet. So yeah, we opened right at the beginning of COVID.
Do you feel like that was the right move?
Yeah, I mean, essentially we were trying to bank on the tourism a little bit, but our target audience when we recipe tested, the sauce and everything was Thai focused anyway. So it was like, I think that was our saving grace that our target audience was Thai people. It wasn't expats and it wasn't tourists. So it to this day, our client base is basically 70% Thai.
70% time.
Yeah.
So you opened your first location, essentially in Khao San.
Yes.
And then, you had Mark Wiens come over, did a video piece on you guys. I mean, that helped out significantly.
Yeah, my experience with Mark Wiens was very, very organic. I didn't reach out to him; he kind of reached out to me. He found us on Instagram, and I still don't have a lot of followers, but I was at like 1,000 followers. So that kind of give the testament of like, hey, just be active on your social media, especially if you're running a business, right? Because I was posting. I wasn't getting a lot of traction. I wasn't getting a lot of interactions, but Mark Wiens actually saw us, through it, and he reached out, through DM. Super genuine. So it was just like, hey, it's just me and my wife. We're a 2-man team, and I didn't know who it was, until that night. I showed my wife. I was like, hey, this guy's coming over to do an interview, on Sunday.
And then your wife.
And my wife's like, oh my God, it's Mark Wiens. I'm like, who the fuck is Mark? Oh, who's Mark Wiens? But yeah, and it was surreal, man. He came and interviewed me on my birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
Great birthday.
February 21st. It was a Sunday. It was very, very surreal, and I thought I think I carried myself pretty well, during that interview. It was just like, I think a testament to him. It's just very easy going, but you felt his energy. You kind of felt his presence.
Yeah, for people that have told me that he seems like a very genuine guy to be around.
Yeah, super genuine. Like, they wanted to pay for the meal. I think they ended up paying. I don't know if we made them pay or whatever, but we didn't want them to pay. But I think he insisted on paying. So yeah, it wasn't one of those that, oh, let's get this influencer guy to come in here and get drive our business up.
Yeah.
Super organic.
Very organic.
Yeah.
So I guess from that video, that's created a lot of publicity.
It gave us that little bit of global recognition, but it didn't do so much it didn't help our sales so much, because where we were situated on the first location, we were in Old Town, so the expats and the locals in Sukhumvit weren't able to really order pizza from us because it was too far.
Yeah.
But people did order, but by the time they got it, it was like, pizza's cold. You got tons of bad reviews because I'm like, oh, pizza's cold with this. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we're in Old Town. You guys are ordering to go to like Thonglor.
Yeah, that's very far. It's a 30-minute drive.
But it was actually, so Mark's team, he had a partner. It was, I don't know if it's iTan or I call him iTan, rest in peace. And he actually ended up doing a piece on us, I think a month after. Right in the middle of COVID, he ended up approaching in a different way, where he ordered the pizza for delivery to his house, and then he did a review at his house. You know, that they came to shoot the process and stuff like that at the restaurant, but the actual review he did at home. And after I think it was 2 days after, he ended up, uploading the video, and our lines went pretty crazy. You know, it was at the time we were still taking orders off of Messenger. So like after he aired it, we closed for 1 day to kind of strategize how we were going to approach it, because we had like thousands of messages, wanting to order pizza. So we were just like, okay, you know what, let's just back to basics, start from the first one in, and we just ran down the list, and it ended up becoming, I think it was like a 2 to 3 month wait for our pizza.
Jeez.
So it was, I think it was accumulation of Mark Wiens and iTan, that kind of drove us. Yeah, there was a 3 month wait for our pizza, and it was good in a sense where we were basically sold out for 3 months, so it was a small space, and we were only able to make 36 large pizzas a day, so it gave us this structure, of like we already knew what time pizzas were going out to who, so it kind of gave us this guideline almost for me and the team, because we were all new, we were all just trying to figure it out, and being busy and sold out every day kind of gave us this confidence and kind of the routine of like how the day would go, so I think it helped us a lot in the long run.
So what happened next afterwards?
After that, basically I didn't actually really get to kind of push that little 15 minutes of fame that we had, because I suffered from mental health conditions, diagnosis bipolar, and ADHD. We were getting a lot of reviews and stuff like that. Most were really positive, but I was really focusing on like the negative reviews, right? Like I can get like 50 great reviews, and that one, bad review was just on my mind. So, my wife had to make a conscious decision to get me off of social media. So I essentially, like, I didn't get to ride that wave. It's like I stopped social media, I stopped reading reviews, I stopped everything, and kind of just focused on work. So I focused on work, and we realized that we needed a bigger space. So I think it was like a year in, we decided to start looking for to relocate out a place somewhere else. And it was I was just hanging out with one of my friends, a friend that I met through video games, through Call of Duty, and I was talking to him about, I was more venting, like, hey man, it was like, are you doing all right? I'm like, I'm looking for a space, and he just so happened to have a space in Rorody, in Planchette, and he was like, it's kind of in a dead end soy, but it's a great location, and I was like, all right, let's go check it out, and we went to go check it out that day, and I kind of knew, there's something just told me, it's like, this is the place. It was a house, which is hard to find, so, and they gave us a really good deal on rent, so, because it was COVID, so they gave us a really good deal on rent, and, the place needed a lot of work, we had to invest a good amount of money into it, but we saw that, okay, we move into this space, we're going to be here long term. There was no doubt. There was very little doubt that, is it going to work? Okay, we got really good feedback, we're going to make it a push, and, I was committed to the project. So I saw us being there for a long time. So, we've been there for over 3 years now, 3.5 years.
Yeah, it's a wonderful location. I mean, you guys made the transition from opening it in Khao Road, where a lot of backpackers, like foreign backpackers go, over to the Planchette area, where you have like the U.S. Embassy, you've got like homes,
more spending power.
You've got office workers, so everybody's coming into the spot.
Yeah, it was, I think, and it was all just timing, it was like, I'm a very universal guy, very like, things are supposed to happen the way and at the time that they're supposed to happen, and it couldn't have worked out any better. But my mental health did not get any better. Actually, it was like so we found a spot and we decided, okay, we're gonna relocate. You know, so we started renovations, and the timeline was, I think it was like 2 months to get the place open. And I went through, that's when I actually got diagnosed. You know, I went through a crazy mania phase, and where I was like almost borderline schizophrenic. Like I was like hallucinating, I was thinking people was after me, and you know, and it was COVID, and you know, like, you know, luckily my friend who actually, who's my landlord, you know, he had the contact for a doctor to go see, and luckily, you know, my wife, you know, booked that meeting with the doctor, and you know, I got there, and luckily the first meds that they gave me knocked me out of my mania phase, but it put me directly into deep depression, like severe depression, and I couldn't work. Yeah, like, and this was like the crucial time when we were relocating from one place to the other, and the head chef was not able to work. So kudos to my team, you know, and my wife to hold everything down, and you know, I was so proud of the team at that time, you know, that they really stuck with me, and they believed in what we were doing, and they didn't give up on me, you know, because like I think a lot of cooks would have been kind of like saw those red flags, you know, of like, oh my God, like what's going on, you know, why is chef not working?
But everybody knows what was going on. And
everybody kind of like, everybody knew except for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was still trying to come down and trying to help and trying to do all this stuff, but you know, but we made it through. You know, I think they had me on a bunch of medications. I was on like 7 pills. They were essentially trying to figure out the chemical imbalance in my brain. Yeah. And then, you know, it took them about 6 months. You know, so I was in deep depression for about 4 months.
Shit. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's good. I share just more because I think, you know, it was weird because like mental health here is still kind of like not spoken about. You know?
I get the impression that mental health here in Thailand is considered taboo, right?
It's very taboo, and there's a lot of people suffering from it. You know, a large majority of the homeless or the people on the streets are on the streets because of mental health issues. You know, it's more like their families don't know what to do with them, or they didn't have family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, just to give you a little, you know, of how taboo it is. My mom is she was a New York City operating room nurse, and when I was going through it, like she didn't really know what to do with me. You know, it's like my wife had some experience with it, so she was one that kind of spearheaded everything. Where it's like, no, this isn't normal. What he's doing is not normal. You know.
Yeah.
Because my mom was just like, I don't know, he's just going a little crazy. You know. I was literally bipolar.
Through everything that you've experienced, do you feel like till this very interview that we're speaking right now, do you feel like your mental health has been resolved, or do you feel like it's something that's still like ongoing?
I think it's ongoing, but I'm aware of it. You know, I think my mental health is in a great place right now. I definitely, I'm definitely clear and aware, you know, of everything I'm doing. But I think this type of like these mental health conditions, I don't think there's a cure for them. I think you can more kind of manage them, right?
Yeah.
So like last December, I kind of went through a little the same feelings and the same stuff that I went through when I had my first mania phase, but I was able to recognize it, and I was vocal about it. I told my wife that, hey, it's like I kind of feel weird, you know, and then so I kind of went back to the doctor, and the doctor kind of reevaluated my meds and kind of got everything back in order, you know. So I think now it's like, you know, with experience comes this knowing of yourself a little bit. You know, I spent a good amount of my time in my bedroom for 6 months. So just, you know, and very incoherent to my surrounding, you know. So that gave me a lot of self-awareness, you know. It's definitely helped me to deal with issues and stuff that we all go through every day.
Kind of fast forward to present day today. You're opening here. You just opened your second location here in Thonglor, where we're filming at right now.
Yeah.
You know, from the scaling.
Yeah. Slice shop.
You know, that's amazing. You know, really closer to where I live. Thank God. What I want to ask you is that, like, you know, if you were to compare and contrast between work-life balance back in New York versus over here in Thailand, I take it that you prefer Thailand much more when it comes to like working and then overall lifestyle.
I prefer Thailand because I think it's not that go like New York, you know. It's not like, you know, because cost of living is a lot more affordable here. You know, there's options. There's so many options where you can have the affordable value, cheaper food, and you can have steaks and fine dining and everything that Bangkok has to offer. But you can, you know, there's not so much stress about money, you know. Like New York, cost of living was sky high, and it's even crazier now. I couldn't even imagine what it is now, you know. But here things are less, you know. And yeah, you can. There's still, you know, people that, you know, if you want to live a lavish lifestyle, you're obviously going to be hustling. And, you know, for me, it's like, I'm not going to say my work habits have changed from New York. I'm working 6 days a week, you know, 14-hour days. You know, I'm actually working more here than I am working in New York. But the difference is I'm working for myself here.
Yes.
You know, if I wasn't working for myself, I don't think I would be able to thrive in the F&B industry. The F&B industry here is a lot different than in New York. You know, in New York was healthy competition. Here, it's almost, I'm gonna be pretty direct, it's almost high schoolish. You know, it's very, very cutthroat, very, very like, yeah, just, you know, different.
Yeah, it's, from the stuff I hear, it seems food and beverage industry here in Bangkok is quite brutal.
It's pretty brutal. It's very cutthroat, and you know, they don't. A lot of people don't have your best interest in mind. You know, not to say that people had our best interest in mind. I think in New York, but I think New York was just bigger. Like the F&B industry was bigger. Here, it's like the F&B industry. You know, one person, you're probably gonna know the rest of the group and stuff like that. So people didn't have time to talk about each other. You know, like it was just like we were just like we're so focused and busy on trying to make it and trying to pay our rent and trying to do this. Where industry night was fun. Industry night was like, oh, we're just going out, we're just hanging out, we're just drinking, you know, just venting, and then everybody goes back to work the next day. You know. Here is a little different. I don't go out in you know, I definitely have friends in the industry, but I don't mingle. You know, I tried. I tried I tried for a couple months. You know, where it's like, oh, this person's gonna be there. You know, maybe I should go out and make the connection and say hello. And I had the worst time of my life doing that. You know.
So now instead you're just like, let me just do my own
No, the most powerful conversations. I was looking for meaningful, powerful conversations, right? And I thought, okay, what better to do it is to find my peers in the same industry and who will get me. But we didn't really get each other.
Yeah, you guys didn't really click.
Yeah, we didn't click, you know. It's not anybody's fault. It's not his fault or my fault or her fault. We just didn't click. And I reevaluated myself of like, okay, where did I have my most powerful conversations? And it was in our patio at the first location, you know, through customers and friends and stuff that came to visit, you know, and people in the industry that came to visit me. So I told myself, no more going out, you know. It was just like, just hunker down and focus on work and focus on training and then expanding. You know, very much focused right now.
So after opening your second location, your slice shop here, hunkering down, focusing on yourself and the business.
Yeah.
What are some future plans? Just expanding this second location, making sure it's taken off well.
I think my plan is I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but you know, I had some really good news today. Like one of my, you know, I've been training my staff. This one girl in particular to learn how to open pizza, which is probably the hardest thing to do because like everything affects the dough and it's more you had to educate them a little bit, you know. And today she got it, you know, she opened the pizza and it looked fantastic. And I was like, got my head up like, you know, I'm looking for a third location, you know, but not anytime soon. I want to make sure this place gets up and running and we're servicing the community well. Then I could start thinking about the third, you know, because I already have the ovens. You know, when I ordered the ovens for the second location, I already had in mind that, okay, I'm going to try to copy and paste this concept to somewhere else, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, you know, once this place is up and running, hopefully we can start thinking about our third location.
We're expanding and scaling. I like how you have a very growth mindset you're pursuing and maximizing your time here. Have Chef Bing tell about his life experience, his life story, and, you know, giving us his thought process.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how you're going to cook this amazing pizza.
Yeah.
Let's go check this out.
Awesome.
As I watch Chef Bing's approach to making this half-grilled pork neck and half-cheese pizza, it is literally a work of art. From forming the dough to carefully placing the ingredients to constantly shifting the pizza from different levels of the oven, I have to say that Chef Bing is not just a cook, but an artist who deeply cares about his work, crafting each New York-style pizza to perfection. When it came time to taste it, it is exactly how it is every time I eat Chef Bing's pizza. A perfect crunch texture filled with an immersion of flavors that just completely overloads your senses. It was delicious, it's an addiction, it was heavenly, and yes, I am exaggerating a bit, but it's the only other way I can show that this pizza is indeed a work of art, and it's damn good. If you guys are living in Bangkok or just visiting, I highly recommend you guys check out Chef Bing's Pizza. Definitely come, say hi, and order some of his amazing, delicious pizza. It's freaking good. I'm gonna link all of Chef Bing's locations in the description down below, as well as all of his socials. Definitely check him out. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Love you all, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, take care, bye-bye.